Food is all around us. It's no longer just in our kitchens and restaurants. It's on our phones, Instagram, YouTube. We use food as a reason to get together, celebrate, and experience. No matter if that experience is in your home or in a different city. I am your host, Scott Scher, and I'm here to talk about your favorite food and the people behind them. This is the I'd Eat That podcast.
So I had to kind of convince my parents that I had some sort of natural cooking talent because it was pretty disappointing to an Indian parent when their Indian son comes to them and says, hey, I don't want to be a doctor. I don't want to be an engineer. I'm going to take a blue collar job and cook for a living. They obviously they weren't thrilled, and I needed a way to kind of sway them. So I did. I got online and I downloaded every Ina Garten, Rachel Ray, Bobby Flay Thanksgiving-y recipe that I could find. I made them an amazing dinner, and I think to date that was probably the best turkey I've ever made.
Thank you for joining me on the 11th episode of the I'd Eat That podcast, the food podcast that interviews the creative minds of the food world. Today's show is brought to you by Audible. Audible is offering our listeners a free audiobook with a 30-day free trial membership. Just go to audibletrial.com/I'd-eat-that and browse the unmatched selection of audio programs. Download a title free and start listening. It's that easy. Go to audibletrial.com/I'd-eat-that. This is our Thanksgiving Day episode. Today we have 2019 Maryland Chef of the Year, Ashish Alfred. He is the chef and owner of Duck Goose in Baltimore, the Loft at 4935 in D.C., and George's Chophouse in Bethesda, Maryland. Ashish has been featured on The Today Show, Baltimore Magazine, and The Washington Post. Chef Ashish Alfred is going to help us perfect the Thanksgiving Day turkey. Let's talk to Ashish to learn more. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me on the I'd Eat That podcast. Today, we have a special episode. It is our Thanksgiving Day episode. Who better to be on as a guest for this episode than Ashish Alfred? He has a restaurant called Duck Goose, so might as well put a turkey in there, too. How are you doing today, Chef?
I'm doing really well. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. What are your plans for Thanksgiving?
As much as I'd like to say to do as little cooking as possible, that's not in the least bit true. So every year for Thanksgiving, I take one of my restaurants and we turn it into a little bit of a food bank for the homeless in Washington, D.C., and we do an event called Gobble Gobble Give, and it's a potluck dinner. Basically, people bring in extra food that they have prepared, or they bring in raw food. Early in the morning on Thanksgiving Day, we spend the entire day cooking it up and turning it into meals that we can then take into the inner city and distribute it to those in need.
That's a great cause. Good for you for doing that.
Yeah. With any luck, I'll get done early enough to where I can go still eat with my family. But I don't think that I'll be doing any cooking of my own at home this year. I think it'll be the second year in a row that I'm not cooking at home. Otherwise, I typically would always cook Thanksgiving dinner at home. It's how I got into culinary school.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah. So I had to kind of convince my parents that I had some sort of natural cooking talent, because it was pretty disappointing to an Indian parent when their Indian son comes to them and says, hey, I don't want to be a doctor. I don't want to be an engineer. I'm going to take a blue collar job and cook for a living. They weren't thrilled, and I needed a way to kind of sway them. So I did. I got online and I downloaded every Ina Garten, Rachel Ray, Bobby Flay Thanksgiving-y recipe that I could find. I made them an amazing dinner, and I think to date that was probably the best turkey I've ever made. So yeah, Thanksgiving is a meal near and dear to my heart.
That's a funny story. Good. So this is a special episode for you then, too.
Yeah.
When people are going out to buy their turkey, what should they look for?
I think it's almost redundant to say this, or it should be redundant to say this in 2019, but do not go out and buy a frozen turkey. It's a special day. You're going to have people over. You're going to have a lot of things to worry about. You don't want to have to worry about thawing out this turkey as well. So if at all possible, go out and buy a fresh turkey. You also don't want something ridiculously huge, because it's going to take it a lot longer to cook. It's a little bit less manageable. And the chances of you ending up with like really, really dry breasts on a really big turkey, I feel like it's even easier to kind of overcook the dark meat as well. So you want to get something, for me, that like between like 8-9 pounds is like is the top end of where I want to go. Even if I have to buy an extra turkey, then fine, buy an extra turkey, but you don't want something really big.
That's really good advice. So there's a lot of different ways to prepare a turkey. What's your favorite way to cook a turkey?
I've heard of a ton of ways that people cooking turkeys, from smoking them to deep frying them. I've even had people do tandoori turkeys. For me, my favorite is the classic. You roast it off, ton of butter, you stuff some aromatics inside the cavity of the turkey, and really just kind of keep it simple, keep it classic. Let all your garnishes and your sides and your stuffing, let those kind of sing, and give the turkey really an opportunity to sing on its own. Everybody says turkey tastes like chicken, but I think turkey does, when it's prepared properly, it has a special taste to it, and I like to kind of preserve that.
Full disclosure, I'm actually responsible for cooking the turkey this year, and this is going to be my first time, which is the reason why I wanted to do this episode. But
so let's walk you through it, yeah?
Perfect. Let's do it.
First thing you're going to do, you want to season that turkey very, very well, inside and outside. Open up the cavity, get in there with a pepper mill, fresh black pepper. Don't go for the store-bought ground stuff. And some kosher salt. You want to season the skin, kosher salt, black pepper. And you want to whack that into a low oven. When I say low oven, I mean you want to let it run at about 250, 225, 250, depending on your oven. For, you call it a 9-pound turkey. I'd run that for maybe about 45 minutes to an hour or so. Then you're going to pull it out. You're going to get some butter. If you're really feeling adventurous, you can season your butter. You can soften the butter and season your butter with some lemon zest, some thyme, some more salt, a little bit more pepper, and really all the aromatics you want to get into that butter. And then you want to baste that turkey, or really slather that turkey with that butter. And then you're going to crank your oven way up to 425, 450, and let it finish at that temperature. Now, let's assume at this point, how to check whether or not your turkey's done. All birds are different, so it's stupid for me to really give you exact times. You're going to probe it. You're going to make sure the juices are running clear. Do what you need to do. If you have to take the legs off early, take the legs off early. Everybody's always worried about taking the legs off early. If your legs are done, if your legs have yet to be done and your breasts are perfect, then pull the legs off and put the legs back in the oven. Don't be afraid to kind of separate those two parts. People will be much happier about having perfectly cooked legs and perfectly cooked breast meat than they will about having a perfectly presented huge turkey at the table, which only lasts for, a minute, 2 minutes anyway. If you want to whack that turkey back into a really hot oven so you get nice crispy skin. Once your turkey is, me personally, I'll pull it out at about 140 degrees, and I'll flip it on its back. So I'll put it breast side down with the backbone in the air, and I'll throw a dish towel over top of it, and I'll just let it sit for 20 minutes. What that does is it allows all the juice from the carcass to flow back into the breast and really give your turkey a good chance to rest and for those juices to redistribute. And then you're done. Flip her back over, carve her up, and eat her.
Awesome. Yeah, you make it sound so simple.
No, there's a lot of truth to that. No matter how you cook your turkey, if you're doing it in an oven, the amount of time that you spend cooking it, spend at least a quarter or half that much time resting it, and rest it upside down with the breasts down. All the juices will go in. You will be very, very thankful to me that you did.
We were talking about it earlier, but what are some of the other ways that people can go about cooking their turkey?
If you've got a backyard and a fire extinguisher handy, deep frying a turkey is an amazing way to cook turkey. Just, do your measurements right. I think a lot of people screw themselves up and burn their houses down because they put too much oil in it or they let it get too hot. You really, really have to pay attention to what you're doing. Make sure that you have some help on standby. Make sure you have plenty of gloves and safety equipment. But, deep frying a turkey is a great way to cook a turkey. Is
it a lot faster than putting it in the oven?
It is a lot faster.
I know Instapot's really popular. Are people cooking their turkeys in Instapots?
I wouldn't know. I do not own an Instapot. I couldn't tell you, but it makes sense. If somebody really wanted to get creative, in French food, there's coq au vin. You could do a very nice turkey au vin for in an Instant Pot. Just throw your vegetables in there, throw your red wine in there, a little bit of chicken stock, and you could braise the whole thing, and it would probably be beautiful.
Cool. Can people grill a turkey?
Yeah, you could. Listen, it's protein, right? You can cook it any which way you want. If I was going to grill the turkey, then you want to spatchcock it, bone it out as much as you can. Give yourself a nice flat surface, marinate that turkey really, really well, and throw it onto a low grill and kind of just let it work. I'm sure a smoked turkey would be great. I go to Mission Barbecue probably 3 or 4 times after a week, and I have the smoked turkey there, and I love it. I don't own a smoker, unfortunately, so I've never done one, and I can't speak too much on it, but I know I like eating smoked turkey.
What's your favorite side dish for Thanksgiving?
Ooh, that's tough. For me, it's mac and cheese all day, man. It's mac and cheese. It's got to be, my perfect mac and cheese is cavatappi pasta, which is it's like curly penne. It's got ridges in it. It holds the sauce really well. It doesn't overcook. It's easy to kind of get onto your fork. But a good mac and cheese has a couple cheeses in it. If I'm feeling fancy, a little bit of truffles, a nice Parmesan breadcrumb on top, and it's nice and wet. I don't like a dry mac and cheese, but yeah, a good mac and cheese is my go-to side dish.
Nice. Yeah, that sounds really good. Are any of your restaurants doing anything special for Thanksgiving?
Absolutely. So George's Chophouse will be doing a Thanksgiving dinner buffet. So for people that don't feel like cooking for themselves, they can come by there, bring the family, and we will be putting on a pretty big Thanksgiving dinner there. Duck Goose, usually throw on a couple French-inspired Thanksgiving classics. We'll do like a roulade of turkey, the cranberry gastrique, and some like a spin on mashed potatoes. We'll do like a potato mousseline or something like that. Fancify it a little bit.
Nice. So, Chef, are you ready for the final four?
Let's do it.
Cool. Or what food city do you really want to go to that you haven't been to yet?
I hear they're doing amazing things with food in Australia. I know that's a country, not a city, but I'd love to take a trip to Sydney and kind of see what's going on down there. I know a lot of young chefs from there have like traveled abroad, learned other cuisines, and brought that back. Yeah, I'd love to visit Sydney or Melbourne and really see what's going on in food in that part of the world.
Oh, that's interesting. I wouldn't have thought of Australia or Sydney as a food destination, but
especially because everything that they use for the most part is so local, because they're so self-sustaining in that country. Almost everything that they serve, they produce right there and right then, not very far away.
When you're out to dinner, what's the hardest meal for you to pass up?
I've never passed up a meatloaf, and it's very hard for me to pass up the chicken, no matter where I am, whatever kind of restaurant it is. And typically, the nicer a restaurant is, if I see chicken on the menu, I will order it. 'Cause I'm a big believer in that the measure of a good chef is in how he prepares chicken.
Good answer. What's the most exotic dish you've eaten?
The most exotic dish I've eaten, I ate goat's balls in India. They were spicy. They were not as chewy as I thought they would be. They were actually pretty tender. They were just fried lightly and served in like an onion, very spicy browned onion curry. They were pretty good. No complaints.
Nice. And if people want to learn more about you, where can they find you?
My Instagram has a lot about me. It's at Chef Ashish Alfred, and Google.
If you want to go to Ashish Alfred's restaurants, Duck Goose, Loft at 4935, and George's Chophouse are all amazing restaurants. Some of the dishes at Duck Goose just blow me away. But Ashish, thank you so much for being on the show, and hope you have a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you so much for having me, and same to you.
Big thanks to Chef Ashish Alfred for coming on the show. If you want to learn more about Ashish and his restaurants, his social media links and website info are in the description of the episode. If you enjoyed what you heard, please subscribe, share, and like this podcast. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Curate for additional content. Next week, we'll have food photographer Tom McGovern. He will give us some photography tips to make our food pics more appealing. I will see you next week on the I'd Eat That podcast.